Most people in Taiji are fishermen, fishing families, and they fish for lobsters and crabs and tuna and bonita. They don't kill dolphins. It's a very small minority of people who are doing this, so I really want to make that clear. Can you come up here and read these questions to me? Then one down, 100 more to go.
Okay. Why do you oppose a boycott?
Well, that's a very good question, following what I just said, because a boycott of Japan is a blanket indictment against all Japanese people, and the Japanese people are not guilty. There was a boycott in the 70s, big boycott. That's how the big environmental groups were dealing with whaling. They would take out full-page advertisements in New York Times, Washington Post, the Miami Herald. I have one at home, full page. Boycott Japan, save the whales. And what was happening was in California and Oregon and the West Coast, where you have a lot of Asian Americans, young Japanese children or Asians were being beaten up on the playground. They called Jap whale killers. And you know, kids can sometimes be very cruel on the playground. So a boycott is, it's not the way to go. We're trying to find ways to work with the Japanese people, not against them. They hold the key to solving this problem.
How are the local activists in Japan doing? This is from Deanna Thompson here in Las Vegas. And if change will come from within Japan, how can we help them?
Yeah, it's very, very hard for Japanese activists. It's almost an oxymoron, Japanese activists. I hear myself saying Japanese activists. It's hard to be an activist in Japan because the media will attack them. The local media in Wakayama, who are friendly with the mayor, and when the Japanese activists show up, they are criticized for being traitors. They're called traitors and puppets for the Western anti-whaling movement. So it's very, very difficult for them to step up, but it's happening slowly. And that's really what our work is about, is finding them and trying to empower them, and hopefully they will take ownership of this issue and the Westerners can get out of there. I know I want to get out of there. I've been going back there for 12 years in a row, and it's not easy. Taryn just came from there. He was there for a month. It's hard to be there a month and witness what you witness every day.
Let's see, from Corinne Nyman. She's from St. George. With blackfish being so huge, do you think it will transfer to dolphins and people will continue to fight against dolphin captivity?
Absolutely. That's the new activism, those kind of films like Blackfish and the Cove. And anybody could do it. And I like telling this story to groups of young filmmakers, because sometimes people are intimidated making a documentary. They think this is an overwhelming thing and maybe they can't do it. But actually, you know, the guy who made this movie, it was a phone call. He called me one time. I was in Miami, and he said, "Can I follow you around with my camera?" I said, "Well, sure." That's why he had just seen a DVD I made. I made a little, it's called Welcome to Taiji. And it's not for public consumption. It's for the media. We were trying to get media attention. And it's very, very graphic. So it's not something you would show on television. But Louis Sahoya saw it, and he called me and said, "Can I follow you around with my camera?" I said, "Sure, that's why we made this." But I'm leaving tomorrow for Taiji. And he said, "Well, I'll meet you there." And he hung up the phone and went out and took a 3-day crash course on how to make a movie. Never made a movie before, okay? But he surrounded himself with people who knew more than he did. Writers and editors and so forth. And his movie was entered into the Guinness World Book of Records for winning more awards than any documentary in history. Wow. And I told the story to myself. So I told that story to my son, and he went out and made a mini-series called Blood Dolphins, which is based on the Cove. And you can see that, by the way, for free online. I think it may be on our website. It's a 3-part TV series. So did I answer the question? I sometimes stray. Okay.
I think so. But you know, we asked people to write questions ahead of time because we weren't sure how many people would be here,
Right.
you know. But when I asked at the beginning how many people had seen the Cove and how many people hadn't, there was a lot here that have not seen it.
Oh.
And maybe they didn't get an opportunity to write a question. So if anybody has just seen the movie, does anyone have a question that they want to just
A
direct?
new fresh question.
A new
It's not
fresh-
in our bowl, fish bowl. Just,
You are a badass. First of all. You are. It's such a great movie. Like I
No.
love it. Yeah. Yeah. Right. You know, emotionally, I guess, and this is for other new activists here. How do you emotionally do it? I mean,
not very well.
right.
No, I'm falling apart, actually. So it's not that I'm doing this very well. I'm consistent, but it's very difficult.
Right.
Because it's not just Chai Ji. We were in Greece and where there are dolphin shows, and in summertime in Europe, all these dolphin shows are opening, and a lot of times the activists who are trying to stop it can't get the media attention, so we go there and help them. In Greece and Belgium and where were we? Sweden and Denmark, and before here was the Dominican Republic, and it just goes on and on and on. So it'll wear you out if you don't pace yourself. You have to pace yourself.
Good question.
Sleep deprivation is an issue. In this movie, it looks like I'm crying all the time, but I'm really not. My sleep deprivation causes my eyes to water a lot, and it has a lot to do with being at the Cove and not being able to get rid of those images when you walk away from there. Yeah.
This question's from a niece in Riverside, California. What is the quick and short explanation to make others that are not involved in activism understand the dolphins and Taiji? Watch the Cove.
Yeah, well, the best way is the Cove to watch that because it's just so well done. Yeah, I think that's the best way. Or Blood Dolphins has something to do with the Cove also. Blackfish, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the new activism in these films, and you really can't do it. You can make short films, 5 minutes long. I see Taryn keeps making these films. Someday it's going to probably break out and be, you can enter a short film into Sundance. The goal for these filmmakers was to get it accepted into Sundance. It wasn't about winning. They never dreamed they would even be accepted. And so everybody was shocked when it actually won. And it just kept winning. It won more awards than any film in history.
This question is from Leslie. I think that she didn't know she's from Las Vegas here. Where are the best places to release dolphins, wild ocean or in sea pen sanctuaries?
Well, the best place to release a dolphin is back in their home range, wherever they were captured. If you can do that, that's the best thing. It's not always possible because sometimes, many times, their habitat has changed since they were captured. And sometimes you can't release them back in the wild. So those are two different things. Well, let me just explain what I think is the solution to the dolphin captivity issue. Number one, stop capturing dolphins, period. There's no reason to capture a dolphin for education or entertainment or so-called research. So that's the first step. Second step is those that can be released back into the wild, rehabilitated and released, and not all of them can be. They should be released back in their home range if you can do that. Those that can't can go to a sanctuary. If there was such a place, there is no sanctuary. We have sanctuaries for elephants and tigers and lions and chimpanzees and dogs and cats and just about everything, but not for dolphins. But that's going to change very soon because the National Aquarium in Baltimore is here with free the Mojave dolphins and try to get the dolphins at the Mirage into the same sanctuary. They keep saying, well, we can't release them. I see quotes in the paper from Steve Wynn and from the Mirage and from the trainers and from them. They say, well, we can't release them in the wild. They can't be free because they were born here. Nobody's talking about freeing them. They do the same thing in Miami at the Miami Seaquarium with Lolita, the orca that's been in captivity for 44 years now. And so, yeah, we'd like to get her out of there. And the whole conversation is about we can't free Lolita because of A, B, C. And nobody's talking about freeing Lolita. We're talking about a simple flight from Miami to Puget Sound where there is a cove waiting for Lolita. It's a simple piece of business. It's not difficult. They'll say, well, we're afraid she'll die in the airplane transport. SeaWorld moves their orcas around all of the time in airplanes, and not one orca has ever been lost in an airplane. So there's no danger in flying Lolita to Puget Sound, and there is no problem with flying the dolphins from Las Vegas to the sanctuary when the National Aquarium creates it. So there is some hope that they will go there eventually, if they will just be honest enough to admit, like the National Aquarium, it was very hard for them to admit, we were wrong all these years. And I hope at some point, I think they will at some point have to admit that they were wrong. And if there's a sanctuary, they are out of excuses.
Do you have a timetable on that, Rick?
I don't have a timetable. It's not my, the National Aquarium is in the process of doing it, but they don't consult with me. I was arrested there during the show. The last dolphins that were captured in America were captured in Pine Island, Florida, and they were taken to the National Aquarium, and we all went there and did a big protest, and we deliberately got arrested to bring attention to the capture that was taking place. And CNN covered it, CNN International. It went all over the world, that story. And that's the only reason dolphins have not been captured since. It's not illegal to capture dolphins in America. If SeaWorld applied for a permit to capture them, it would be approved. 99.4% of all permits are approved to exploit them any way you want to. So it would be approved.
How can we change that?
Sorry?
How can we change that?
How can you change that?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
Okay.
politics in Washington. And the problem is the lobbyists lead and the politicians follow. How do you fix that? I don't know how to fix that.
We were pretty much successful in the Georgia Aquarium from them importing whales or beluga whales from Russia. And mainly that was due to us noticing that it was an import request, and there's always a public open debate that you're allowed to have.
Public comment.
That's required. So there was a huge campaign set up for public information. So based on that and their own judgment call about the beluga whales being endangered, so far it's been denied. Of course, they're still trying to get it approved again. One dolphin has been imported from Kamagawa SeaWorld in Japan, and it's the offspring of two dolphins that were taken from Taiji. I've been able to trace a couple of other dolphins that false killer whale that actually did come from Taiji, and it is in a SeaWorld in the U.S. So anyway, I just wanted to add a little bit about that. So find out if you ever hear about an import request and that, we're pretty much on them. This latest one kind of slipped through the government regulations for a while. So it was still approved and got through. That's what it takes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What did you think of the film Dolphin Tale?
What did I think of what?
The film Dolphin Tale.
Oh, Dolphin Tail? I didn't see it.
Well, neither did I, but I
No.
think it exploits and it glorifies captivity, don't you?
Absolutely. And that particular dolphin, Winter, is at the Clearwater
Right.
And so earlier I was saying I'm trying to tie this Mirage to the National Aquarium, who are on the right track. So is the Clearwater Aquarium. They're trying to raise $200 million to build a research retirement center in downtown Clearwater, which is a farce. You have to build it in natural seawater somewhere where they can experience the natural rhythms. But they're going to get winter out of that building in a retirement center, and maybe in the same place where the dolphins from the National Aquarium grew up. So we're all for that, but we have to really ride herd on them and make sure they stay on track and forget about that downtown. You know, that's just that whole thing is phony.
Would you equate that to Seaworld's new plans in San Diego?
What about SeaWorld?
Would you equate that to their new plans for their extension?
Yeah, well, they just want to make the tank bigger. They need to abolish the tank, not make it bigger. The captivity of dolphins started in America in 1938 in St. Augustine, Florida, and it's a failed experiment. And the National Aquarium, this went over everybody's head when they admitted they were wrong, and they're going to get them out of the building and retire them. It's a really, really big deal.
Jackie from, is it Whittier, California? Will you be involved in doing another documentary?
I don't know. That was just a phone call. Somebody asked. Anytime I have an opportunity to reach, this documentary was really an interview, no different than any other interview. I did one in Terrence's hotel room today. It's no different than that. Louis showed up after his 3-day crash course on how to make a movie. He had a little small camera, and we met in Taiji, and he stayed for a while, and then he left, and he came back, and now he and another guy, and they had a bigger camera. And this went on for three years, I think. It wasn't really a movie. It was he didn't know what it was himself. And one day he announced it's going to be a movie, and we're gonna enter it into Sundance. So yeah, if there's another documentary, actually they're doing a new movie now. It's called 6, and if it has anything to do with Taiji, they've asked me to do a cameo, but I'm not going to do it unless we can remind the audience about Taiji. So any chance I have to do an interview, I'm always conscious of the fact that you're reaching millions of people every time you do one of those, and they're all important. So the answer is yes, I would do it.
This is interesting, it's off topic, but I guess it's like how this goes. From Morel, Cetacean News Network, Southern California. Can dolphins who are born in captivity be released into the wild, generally speaking?
Well, there's a dolphin by the name of Vanessa who is seen all of the time between Key Largo and Tavernier. And Anessa escaped from a place called the Dolphin Research Center in Grassy Key, and Anessa was born in captivity. So although they say that it can't be done, yeah, I've never tried to release one. I've released many of them, but not one that was born in captivity. I think it's possible in the right circumstances. Yeah, but not all of them are mentally healthy. I mean, some of them are just, they've been through so much. The Navy dolphins, for example, it's highly questionable whether they can be released or not. But they can all be retired. Free the Mojave dolphins. They're not really trying to free them. We know that they probably can't be free like they were before. But freedom is a relative term, relative to living in a swimming pool in the desert. A natural sea pen in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere is a lot of freedom. So that's what we're trying to make happen. We're trying to improve their condition.
Let's see. What age did you start your campaign?
It was Earth Day, 1970. I remember it clearly. It was April 21st, I think. Yeah.
And how many dolphins, average, have been killed so far in the cove?
They've been doing it for a very long time. it since 1969. The drive started then, and I don't know the numbers.
He threw out the number.
I think they're killing a lot of dolphins and small whales that are endangered. There's no oversight. There's nobody checking.
Or I think it says the freeing of the dolphins. I think that's what that means.
Yeah, boy, that's the hardest part. Is you know, trying to keep a marriage going and do what I do. My wife is in Denmark, and we have a 9-year-old daughter, and they travel with me when they've both been to Taiji, but she supports me, to answer the question. She supports me totally, and yeah, she does the same thing. I wrote a book about that. It's called To Free a Dolphin, and she's sort of featured in there. Yeah, yes, sir.
Rick, could you speak to the condition of the dolphins in the wild, how global climate change and how overfishing and Navy sonar and all these things that are degrading their environment are doing to them? How are they faring in the wild?
Not well. Not well. We're destroying their habitat, and there's no point in saving dolphins without saving their habitat. That's the real work. The oceans are falling apart quickly. They're not doing well. 30, 40 years ago, I was in the Yangtze River in China. There were about 350 of the rarest dolphins in the world, the Baiji, the Podicexcelifer, the Chinese river dolphins. Today they're gone. There's none left. They're not coming back. Yes?
Have you experienced any backlash or any sort of...
Backlash? I'm all about backlash.
From Seaworld and whatnot, or from...
Oh, yeah.
Like any sort of... They're trying to exploit you in any way, or they're trying to get back to you, or like
Yeah.
this movie or whatnot?
Well, I'll give you one example. We were in Taiji, and we found out that the Ocean World Casino in the Dominican Republic purchased 12 dolphins. And I have the contract. Two of the city councilmen who you saw in the movie, Mr. Riono and Mr. Yamashita, gave me the contract. And they paid $154,000 for each dolphin, times 12. As soon as I found out about that, I went to the Dominican Republic and took out a full-page newspaper ad, and it was an open letter to the president asking him to deny the permit because it's so violent what happens there. They don't want to tie in the Dominican Republic to Taiji. The Dominican Republic has a whale sanctuary that they're very proud of. It was the first one in the world. Long story short, the permit was denied, and they filed a lawsuit against me and my employer, which eventually became 4 lawsuits, totaling more than $1 billion, $1.2 billion. And those lawsuits went on for about 6 years. They just ended about a month ago. That's what they do, yeah. It didn't cost me anything because we had insurance and the lawyers were working pro bono. The Ocean World Casino paid $2.5 million to sue us, and they lost that. Plus, they lost $125,000 times 12. So that was a good thing for me, actually, because it's everybody in the industry, Seaworld and all of them, were watching that lawsuit very closely. And they saw that we came out unscathed, and they lost about $5 million. So I'm sure there's somebody from the Mirage here in this room tonight, so they know about it. They typically record, yes?
What has been the ICW's response to this film and your work in recent years, specifically the Cannes delegation? And do they really have any authority over, well, I guess whatever their agenda is, do they have any authority in following that agenda?
The IWC is dysfunctional. It's a ship of fools. And so I don't pay a lot of attention to it. Actually, that was the first time I went to the IWC, and as you saw, I was literally thrown out in the street with my television set. And I never went back. So I don't really pay a lot of attention to them. Through the years, all of these years, I know that they have this meeting every year, and everybody gets dressed up from all over the world, and they go to some exotic location, and there's hundreds of people there, and nothing happens. And next year they'll do the same thing all over again at some other exotic location, spending millions of dollars having this big convention, and nothing happens. It's a waste of time and money and energy. But the Cove movie, I think, exposed the IWC for what they are, and all of the corruption in the Caribbean and all of those islands. So that was extremely helpful. But they don't tell me what they're doing or what they're thinking, so I don't really pay much attention to them.
I'm not sure I really understand this question. It's, how did you know the animals were being mistreated? I don't know if that's to the Mirage or Taiji. Can someone clarify?
At the Mirage.
At the Mirage, okay.
At the Mirage, well, we were talking about a sonic creature with a brain larger than anybody in the hotel. In a swimming pool. That's how I can tell they're being mistreated. I mean, there's no reason for a dolphin to be born in a swimming pool. And it's not just the dolphins. You see those tigers, they're in a cage the size of the stage. And they were born there, they're going to be there the rest of their life. There was a leopard there that, they walk, they're free ranging. They walk for miles and miles and miles. And I was thinking about that today, they bus in children, and they have a back entrance so they don't have to walk through the casino. But all these kids, probably thousands or hundreds of thousands of kids from around this area have been to the Mirage, and I wish I could find all of these kids and re-educate them. All of them have been miseducated. They think they actually belong there. They will walk out of there, they'll grow up, and they'll go to a dolphinarium too. They'll bring their kids, and we have to go out and capture more dolphins to meet supply and demand, or breed them in captivity for these people who are abused by dolphins in captivity, who think they belong there. You could, yeah. That's exactly what, that's exactly what.
What about a letter campaign to Steve Wynn?
Sorry?
What about a letter campaign to Steve Wynn?
Well, I don't know if he'll respond to it. He has nothing to do with it anymore. He had it for 10 years. He created the mess and sold it to somebody else. But we're going to do some follow-up and invite him and the MGM people to get involved in this new rehabilitation retirement center, wherever. This is all new, so it's not quite figured out yet. But yeah, they can afford. Steve Wynn is a billionaire with a B. So is MGM. They can afford to do the right thing, to retire them just like the National Aquarium is doing. They can afford to do that.
Recently, Finland was sending the ambassador to Japan, so about the benefits, right? As Obama, I mean, what's our government policy? What's going on with us trying to change the laws?
Well, it's very, very political. We in America, the government is against whaling, but not really. Not really. Under the table, we're making deals with them. Here's the deal: you keep buying our cattle, keep buying our pigs, keep buying all our stuff, and we'll leave you alone on this issue. So Australia does the same thing. They want to keep selling their cattle to Japan, so you don't rock the boat. So it's very, very political. The solution is not with the politicians. It's not with the government. Governments protect corporations, not people and other animals. It's up to us, the consumers. We have the power. We're the ones who buy the tickets. And if we stop buying the tickets, they'll go out of business. It's all based on supply and demand. Right now in Taiji, the sale of dolphin meat is dropping dramatically because the Japanese people are learning that the product is contaminated. It's full of PCBs, mercury, methyl mercury, and Japanese people are more concerned about clean food than we are in the West. If they had any idea that the dolphin meat was contaminated whale meat, they wouldn't eat it, they wouldn't buy it. And they're learning that, and that's why it's dropping. The same is true with dolphinariums. If people stop buying tickets, the problem will go away. We, the consumers, we have all the power. So she was absolutely right. Tell 5 people, and they'll tell 5 people, and people will stop. If people see the code or Blackfish, they probably are going to think twice before they buy a ticket for a dolphin show. And that's the solution. Don't buy a ticket. Yes, sir.
Since the release of this film, have you been back to Taiji? And how are they treating you?
Yeah, I've been going back for the last 12 years. I just came from there. I was there last month. On September, we all go there September 1st, and then we try to keep 1 or 2 people there throughout the 6 months. Well, it's changed. When the movie came out in Japan, it first played at the Foreign Correspondents Club, and I went to it. It was just like this. It was a Q&A, you know. And we landed in Tokyo. I was the first one out of the plane, and there were 60 policemen there. I counted them in uniform, waiting for me to protect me because there were so many death threats, and all of the right-wing militants and were protesting wherever the film was being shown. And yeah, so now when I go back, when I go through immigration, you sort of get in a line there, and then it's your turn. You step up and you put your fingers for, you know, fingerprinting, and then they take a photo of your eyes. The bell goes off because I'm in the computer, and the guys come from the back room, and I go in the back room for 4 hours for interrogation. They want to know where I'm going to be every minute of the day for the time I'm there. They say it's for my own protection, but it's changed in that way. And they monitor us. But I got to tell you, the police, and they're very respectful, they're very polite, and they're even apologetic for holding me up like that for 4 hours. But we have a very good relationship with the police in Taiji now. In the movie, you see, there's one policeman who speaks English. Mr. Yamamoto was his name. And we became pretty good friends, actually. Although he had to put up this front, you know, like, because he's got to report to Tokyo. But when people weren't paying attention, he would call me aside and say, "Keep doing what you're doing, it's working." And so I used to call him. I had a cell phone, a Japanese cell phone. I would call him when I was on the train. When I arrived in Taiji, they would meet me at the station, the police, and it made them look good, like they're doing their job and they can report to their superiors. And one day I called him from the train, and some guy answered the phone who couldn't speak English. And, well, I can't speak Japanese, so I found someone who could talk to this guy. I called him back a few times, and I thought I had the wrong number. It turns out it was Mr. Yamamoto's son who had his telephone, and he was at his funeral. He passed away, but he was replaced. He was able to explain to the other policemen in English, in Japanese, I mean, that we're not really a threat. The Dolphin Project crew here, and we have a very good relationship with the police there. They trust us, we trust them, we stay in touch with them. They're not the enemy.
All right. Well, I was just told that we probably need to wrap it up in here, so we have a little bit of time outside because we have to be out.
Okay, we have to get out here. How many people can come to the demo tomorrow? Great. Okay. Can. Will come? Beautiful. Okay, I'm holding you to it. I'm taking that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.